Welcome to the podcast, Whiskey and a Map. Stories of adventure and expeditions as told by those who live them. I'm your host, Michael Reinhart. It has been said that many adventures and expeditions start simply with a map and a glass of whiskey. A desire to go and see the world's wild places. You're invited to pull up a chair, pour yourself a glass of your favorite whiskey, and join us as we hear stories from another one of our friends just returned from the field. Yossi, welcome to the podcast. How you doing?
I'm honored. This was well anticipated, and I'm excited. Thank you.
I'm glad you can join us. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. But before we begin, we have a tradition here at Whiskey and a Map. Do you have a good drinking story for us?
I don't like liquor, and I don't like to get drunk. However, I do get drunk religiously once a year. And once a year, I get drunk until I'm losing it completely. Otherwise, I'm breaking my vow. Because I made a vow that one day a year, I'm going to get drunk. And I'm not drinking for me, because I don't like getting drunk. But my friend, he really liked. He was a drunk, what can I say? He was a good-for-nothing, irresponsible bastard, and yet the most lovable person who you would ever meet in your life. On his open grave, I made a promise to him that on this day, the day he died, I will get drunk for him. And thus, every 13th of May, I get drunk. But not only that I get drunk, I live the day like him. So I'm outrageous, irresponsible. I'm doing crazy things, and I'm rowdy, and I'm screaming. And I'm screaming a lot because he was screaming nonstop. It was a way of life for him. He would scream when he entered any place, any venue, and it could be anywhere. It can be the alcaldia, like the mayor's office. It can be a pharmacy. It can be a restaurant, a fancy hotel. It can be in the middle of the jungle or in some rural area. He would scream at the top of his lung with all his might and power. He would scream. But he would scream a question. And since he would scream a question, somebody had to answer the answer to his question. And if nobody answered, he will keep on screaming, and he would not stop screaming. So it became like a law of the universe, that if Vesty Pakos is screaming, somebody must scream back the answer. And in a miraculous way, from the middle of the bush, an Indian will come with a bow and arrow to scream back. Or a villager will appear in the field to scream back, because his scream could not go unanswered. And his scream was, "Keste, keste," but I'm whispering. He would really scream. And keste, keste, the question is, where is it? Where is it? Keste, keste, where is it? Where is it? It's an ancient form of Spanish. Keste. Where is it? Where is it? And somebody had to answer that question, and there was only one answer. You couldn't improvise. You had to tell the exact right answer, and the right answer was Elaki, Elaki, Ela Aki, Ela Aki. It's here. It's here. So that was my friend Vesty Pakos. This was his war cry. Keste, keste. And it had to hear back, Elaki, Elaki. And many, many events together. This madman, like 2 a.m. in the morning, dusty from a long ride in the back of a truck. We arrive in some remote village on the outskirts of the Madidi, the village of the Takana. And Vesty Pakos gets off the truck, and I see him, and I say, Vesty, please no. Please, Vesty. He puts his hand to his mouth, and he screams. And of course, the village is sleeping. He doesn't care. He keeps on screaming and screaming. And then suddenly one window opens and lights go on. 15 minutes later, the entire village is out with their tambourines, with their guitars, with their alcohol, with their women and children. And there's a party until the morning. Because also the scream, where is it? And the answer, it's here. It curls within it another question and another answer. Because where is it? It's here. When? Now. They come together. So the entire philosophy of life is encapsulated in this scream. Where? Here. When? Now. That's how Vesty Pakos lived his life. And since he was drunk, because he loved the liquor, and since he was my best friend, and since that on my wedding day, I invited him to be my best man, I got married in the middle of the Amazon, deep in the Madidi. He honored me and came all the way from La Paz, which is a big way. 17 hours by car, 8 hours by river, by boat, just to arrive to that destination. And we partied all night. The next morning, he told me, he had a nickname for me. He would call me Serio, which means serious. And he told me, Serio, I'm sorry, I know you. He was my best man at the wedding, but he said, look, the zoo needs me. I have to go back to La Paz. On the way home, he died.
Oh, man.
So within one day, he led me to my wedding. The following day, I took a private plane to make it to his funeral. So I was on his open grave and I was screaming his war cry. And 2,000 people were answering, Keste, Keste, Elaki, Elaki. And then I made the vow on his open grave. So since then, every 13th of May, I drink whatever, doesn't matter what I drink, as long as I get drunk.
You have a particular system of traveling, because you travel all around the world in search of and seeking out different peoples and experiences. How would you describe your particular system of traveling?
Well, it's a very particular. I'm happy to teach it. It's really fun. So I like adventure. The definition of adventure is unexpected. Like the opposite of it will be organizing a tour. So for me, even an expedition in a way, it's an organized tour. Because you have an itinerary, you know where you fly, what you intend to do the first day, the second. I actually to go to places that I don't know anything about them. I like to go alone. I like to travel alone. The reason why I like to travel alone is because I don't like to be alone. So that's why I travel alone. Yeah, it's being alone means being vulnerable, and people adopt you immediately when you're alone. People take you in. And my passion is culture. It's never been, my passion never been to conquer a mountain or cross a desert or do something nobody has done or like prove myself against the elements. I like to meet people as remote as possible, people that were exposed to culture as little as possible. And then I like to be one with them. But it doesn't have to be necessarily that remote. Even in a simple, like let's say in Morocco, I would still do the same. I look for people that are simple and I'll go and become one of them. And the way I do it is I do it by looking for a place that there is no information about it. And then I will go to this place. So before it was The Lonely Planet. I would read The Lonely Planet and then I would look at the atlas and I look for places that are not mentioned in the book and I will go there. Today, you've got internet, so it's very hard to find a place with no information whatsoever because, the world has changed in the last couple of decades. But, I have a few good stories about that system of traveling. But Papua New Guinea, I chose an island in the middle of the ocean because there was no information whatsoever about this island to the extent that I didn't know if there's people there or there'll be food. So I came with a Hawaiian sling, like a fishing spear. I brought flour and a little bit of oil because I said with flour I can make flatbread and with the spear gun I can catch fish and I'll be fine if there's no people there. But I decided I'm going to that point because there's no information whatsoever about that point. That point was called the Carteret Group. It was an atoll in the middle of the ocean. It was very hard. There was no information, so I had to fly to the nearest island and then start walking and asking people. The island, the big island next, that was the closest to that point was Buka. So I went to Buka, the island of Buka in Papua New Guinea, It was my first time in Papua New Guinea. And I asked around, and in the end, I was directed to the church where there's the Father Boniface. He was the priest, and he told me that he's been there before, and that if I look for Aloysius, one of the fishermen in the port, that Aloysius know how to get there. So I went and met Aloysius. We negotiated. I gave him $100, which was a fortune. He wanted my watch as well, my wristwatch. It was a nice diving watch. So I gave him my watch again as well. He took me in a small boat, like 5 meters, open boat. He had a compass. It was a wooden compass. It was a huge adventure. It was open sea, ocean. There was a storm, and then everything was calm, and then flying fish were just flying along with us. And then we arrived to this group of islands. Apparently, I'm the first visitor, the first tourist, you can say, ever to come to this island. I was the first person that came out of curiosity. Yes, Boniface, the priest, came, and other missionaries, but nobody, even an American pilot that was dropped by the Japanese, lived a year on the island. But nobody ever came to visit them just because they were curious about them. I found people, and they spoke a language called Alia. So I immediately started learning their language, because I didn't speak Pidgin, but, I grabbed a few words in Pidgin and learned some Alia from them. And I had the time of my life. There were 6 atolls, so 6 little islands made the atoll. I went to the smallest one. There were only 17 people living on that island. And I stayed with them on this island. And I had such amazing time. Till this day, I will never forget the teachings that I received from these people, because they were so, they were so pure. They moved me so much with their hospitality, and so I was the first visitor. But yet, they took care of me, like still to this day, I don't think I ever experienced hospitality like the hospitality of these people. But what I learned, they have no fridge, and they have an abundance of fish and coconuts. I mean, this is the richest people in the world. They have no money, but they have coconuts, breadfruits. They have the laguna inside the atoll with as much fishing as they want. They have the big fish from the outside. They have no water. If there's no rain, they drink coconuts. They wash in the ocean, and they never miss, with the spear guns that they make themselves from tires and stuff that came with the drift. That's how they build the outriggers. Everything is coming with the current. When somebody gets a big turtle or a big fish, there's no fridge, and there's no point in drying because they have all this abundance. So they give to the neighbor, like they're all sharing. It's a way of life to share. And since there's nothing to do, they invest so much in family and friendship and free time to enjoy. I never met people richer than these people of this atoll. So that's one of the stories that I have about my style of traveling. Now, if you don't have this, you would never experience something like that if you want information about where you want to go. Oh my God, the stories I can tell you. I had the most beautiful love affair with a Bedouin woman that I met on the coast of northern Sinai, like that, in a fisherman village that I didn't know. That just like that, I arrived. It was the eyes, and it was the fingers touching when she served me tea. That's how subtle it was. It was so, so beautiful. But I could feel the love, like we really liked each other. But it was just the finger touching when she served me tea and the look in the, and it was enough. There was nothing more needed. It just those priceless moments that are because you don't know where you go, and it's all spontaneous, and you always basing it on the generosity of the people, which will never fail you. It will never fail you if you're alone. So I have more stories like that, but this is my style of traveling, which needs a bit of courage, to go into the unknown. But that's what makes an adventure. That's the definition of adventure.
Now, your adventurous life started back in your 20s. Your encounters with the Bedouin. Can you tell us about that?
I was drafted to the military service. I was drafted to the Navy. I was on a missile boat. My missile boat was stationed in Sharm el-Sheikh. I was very lucky. Sharm el-Sheikh at the harbor, and we had a military base. And I was in the Sinai. I started exploring the Sinai and the desert and the sea, the Red Sea. I started making a living as a fisherman, like I started spearfishing. Amazing adventure as a spear fisherman. Unbelievable adventure. The places that is most dense on the planet in sharks is the Red Sea because of the clarity and the coral reef. So such a rich, like the richest reefs I ever seen, and I've been to many exotic places, including the Great Barrier. Nothing compares to Ras Muhammad, Sharm el-Sheikh, all these amazing reefs. So I was a spear fisherman, and when you spearfish, you carry sharks and you carry fish that are bleeding because you shoot them, and then you carry them with you, and they're oozing blood, and the place is infested with sharks. So there was lots of adventure with the sharks and the moray eels, and it was like really crazy stuff, beautiful, beautiful. I was addicted to it. And I was so addicted to fishing that I started going out to fish with the fishermen at night. Again, my military service was very loose, and out of a month, I had about 10 days that I was free completely. So in these 10 days, I wouldn't fly north to see my friends and family. I stayed in the Sinai, and I started fishing, and I met the fishermen, the Bedouin fishermen, and I loved them. So something so noble about them. The Bedouins are very quiet. They're very dignified. They're very, very quiet. We are loud. The Israelis are loud. We make a lot of noise, The Bedouins speak softly. The gesture is like, they're always dignified. So I was drawn to that. I started visiting their villages, and then I started dressing like them. And I dressed in white, and I learned how to put the turban on, and the jalaba and the kafia. And I learned the language, and I learned the custom. And this was my first one, my first cultural adventure without even intending or knowing. There was something so beautiful about the language and about, like the people of Uene off the shores of Papua New Guinea, indigenous people, they have a lot of time, and time is the most precious thing. People that live close to the land, they're not busy. They're not like, they don't have a wristwatch, and they don't have, they just have time. And then I realized the biggest gift somebody can give you is their time. There's nothing more precious than time. And these people are very generous with their time. They give you their time. And they don't give you the time. They give anyone their time with great generosity. So when you sit around, let's say men and women, they eat separately. So the men always sit together. There's a tray of food in the middle. A boy usually will come and wash the hands off one by one, and all the men will wash their hands. The food will be served, usually like a big tray full of rice and meat, and you eat with your hands, Again, took me time. It's all messy and sticky and dropping on me, but somehow they make the perfect ball, and it's, and then somebody will come to join. And, like a big circle, like 12, 15 people. Everything will stop, and people will get up in turns, not together, quietly, one by one. One will stand up and come to the newcomer, which probably they saw a couple of hours before. It's like, and they will touch forward, and they will whisper things one to the other. They just will whisper blessings. And as they touch their forwards together, and they just whisper blessings. And then this guy will sit, and another will get up. This can take like 20 minutes off the circle. And they will do it. And then somebody else will come, they will do it again. So that kind of like generosity of time, that kind of ritual really impacted me deeply. I learned, the wisdom of scarce resources, making more respectful to the land. it touched me, like that you can live like that, very noble, very quiet, very connected to the element, singing, storytelling, and being a nomad. A traveling soul means we are eternal nomads. We're eternal nomads. And for me, a nomad means I'm always at home, wherever I sleep. Since a nomad, you're a nomad, where you sleep is home. And that's how I behave until today. No matter where I sleep, I say, I go home. It can be an hotel in some city. That night, this is home.
Well, it occurred to me, when we were talking earlier, that when you were looking at the world map, you lament that, there's so few places in the world that really haven't been explored. I'm not sure if there's any left, but there's so many cultures that need to be explored. And
that's right.
It sounds like that's your pursuit.
Absolutely. I believe in culture. I don't believe in nations. I think nation is this very stupid idea that is, overdue. Its time is gone. It's a disaster to our experience. It separates us. But our beauty is in our culture. Okay? So cultures are beautiful. Nations are not so beautiful.
Now, the search for cultures and the adventure, is that what led you to the Amazon?
No.
No?
I was very young at that time. I was only, I just finished my military service. So I was 21. But I was very eager because I decided already years before that I'm going to be a world explorer. And in order to be a world explorer, I need to go to a place that was unexplored. This was like a childhood dream. I had options, but I got excited about the Amazon because of a book I read that left a great impression on me. I read it several times, and the book by Henri Charrière, Papillon.
Oh, Papillon, yes.
Wow. The spirit of this man was just unbeatable. So it's all fascinating, the Devil Island and, all these attempts to escape. But then when finally he succeeds, he's washed to the shores of Venezuela and he goes into the Amazon, the Venezuelan Amazon, and he's adopted by a tribe and he marries the daughter of the chief. He's got all these beautiful stories there. So I said, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the Amazon, look for uncharted. I'm going to find a tribe that will adopt me. This was like, I'm going to follow the footsteps of Charrière. And I was such a fan of Charrière that I decided I'm going to go meet him first and get his personal blessing. So that's what I did. I flew to Venezuela. That's how I started my travel. So, it took me 8 months to get to South America because I needed to work to save enough money. I worked in Alaska and, I worked in New York. I sacrificed a lot of hard work, got enough money, and then I flew to Venezuela because I wanted to meet Papillon. And on the back of his book, it says, today, Henri Charrière is living with his wife in Mérida, Venezuela. So I said, I'm going to go to Mérida, Venezuela. So this was 1980. So there was no internet. So my only information was what's written on the back of the book. I arrived in Mérida. He died a couple of years before. So I didn't know that he died. But I did go to his city. And that's why I went to Venezuela, to get his personal blessing. This is how passionate I was with his story. And from then on, I looked for my own adventure. My own adventure, became a story by itself, and a book, and a movie. So in a way, I did follow the footsteps of Charrière, and I had my own great, great adventure. He was the inspiration for that.
I believe you also were a fan of and read Fawcett's accounts. Did that also influence you?
Absolutely, yeah. And that's also very funny because I ended up on the same, the Tuichi River. Fawcett was on the Tuichi River in the Madidi. And he describes even that Malpaso, where I had the accident, is there in the book of Fawcett. But I only learned that reading Fawcett again and realizing how close. But this, what I took from Fawcett was the idea of El Dorado, So this was another passion of mine. I was very young, said, I'm going to find some treasure, I'm going to find the treasure, So I really meant it, when you're naive, there's nothing like naivete because everything is possible. I was so passionate. Like, I didn't know anything. I just wanted to find the jungle. Like, I didn't come to see Machu Picchu. I didn't come to explore, like the Galapagos or like, Patagonia. I couldn't care less. I just wanted uncharted and to find a tribe and to become one of them. But as I traveled, I became a backpacker because I had a backpack and I met other backpackers and I befriended them and it was fun, but still I didn't want to become one of them. I still was obsessed. No, I'm looking for my jungle. And they were laughing at me, friends that I made on the road. Finally, after long search, when I went through Venezuela and then Colombia, by the time I was in Colombia, I was already speaking Spanish, And then I passed through Ecuador, went into the jungles of Ecuador, went to Peru. Then something happened. I started exploring the jungle, but I wanted to come in through Puerto Maldonado. And I was on my way to Puerto Maldonado. And somehow I got on a train and I found myself in Puno. Puno is on the lake, Lago Titicaca. So I had to kind of like travel back to Puerto Maldonado, but this was so beautiful. This was like the beautiful lake, huge lake. And also it's very high. The altitude is about 12,000 feet. It's like you need to adjust. And I was taken by that view. And I decided to stay a few days in this town. I was alone. So you're completely free. You do what you want. No schedule. And I stayed there that night. And the next morning I took a ferry to an island in the middle of the lake. Now you see, in life, like it's amazing because it's very hard to see on the spot what's going on. Like, you don't really know what's going on until you have perspective and you see how your life completely changed because of one little incident but at that time you just don't know. That incident was on that ferry. On that ferry, it was early. I think it was Sunday or something after the market day. And mainly in the ferry, there were local peasants. And they looked really beautiful because these people dress very colorfully. They've weaved very colorful, lots of rich colors and embroidery and stuff like that, weaving. They are called the Raza de Bronza, the race of bronze, the bronze race, because that altitude, they get burned like freeze dry, like the sun and the freeze become very rough and the skin like bronze, like that they call Raza de Bronza. Very impressive. And there were a few backpackers, but they weren't friendly. I was alone. They weren't smiling or anything. There were like two boys and two girls that were French. And I was alone. And I think it was also the hour. It was very early, like 6:30 or something, and it was cold. So everybody was like, and the boat wouldn't ignite. It was like one of those pak engines that you needed to pull a string to get the diesel engine go, and it failed again and again and again. And one time he cut his like hand from pulling that strand, and he tried again, and then finally, the engine got alive. And then he started taking the boat out of the jetty and into the lake. And the lake was beautiful with mist rising. And we're just now sailing into the lake. And then suddenly there's a scream. Somebody screaming, Espera, like wait. And we see a guy on the docks running, and he's got a backpack, and he's like waving. He missed the ferry. He wants to get on that ferry. Now, the peasants are grumpy. They don't want, we waited enough. The French,
they want to go home.
They mind their own business. And I feel the urge to intervene, to tell the motorman, hey, come on, But I didn't say anything. I just looked. And that's what I mean. There was no interference. Nobody said anything. This guy is already screaming twice, thrice, and then he's just waiting there. And I see the motorman looking back and forth, driving us forward, but still looking. And I see that should I take him or not? Now, this man, I don't know him. I don't know his name. I'll never meet him again. But he's holding my destiny. That, stick to navigate is in my life now. He makes a decision over my life. I will have totally different life based on his decision. This guy will live or die based on his decision. This is how my story begins. He went back, and that guy that jumped into the boat was the most beautiful man. Was like a 20 years old Swiss school teacher. That was all beauty and kindness and fun. And he jumped into the boat, and he was so happy that we went back. And he was thinking, they noticed that the guy is cut, so he took his kit and took care of him. And then he sat by me. He was telling me like the train was late and he was running and he's hungry, and so I gave him some food. And by the time we came to the island, we were already like buddies. And then we spent a few days in the island, and as it happens, we became like best friends. And he started convincing me to cross the border and not go into Puerto Maldonado, to the Peruvian jungle, but actually to cross with him to La Paz, because it's his last 2 weeks. And he will be honored if we'll spend them together, now that we've met and we're such great friends. And I agreed. So I changed my plans and I crossed the border to La Paz. And then, to Bolivia, arrived in La Paz. We stayed there. He was, doing his shopping. But then we befriended these French girls that we met on the island. So we're going out with the girls. And we had just the perfect life of a backpacker. It was all joy. But then one day, I noticed that somebody is following me in the street. Now, this is like in the movies. Like nobody follows you in real life, But I see that this guy is everywhere. No matter where I go, he's there. So then I stare at him, and he comes over. He's a gringo, but he's old. He's like 40. And he's not dressed like us. He's dressed in like khakis, And he comes over, and he's got strong German accent. He introduces himself as Karl Ruckrafter. And he tells me he's an Austrian geologist. And then it begins. He starts telling me the stories I've read in the books. He tells me my own dreams. He tells me about the Madidi, and that is the last frontier, totally uncharted. And he tells me about the tribes that lives in the Madidi called the Toromonas, and they evade culture. They know of culture, but they don't want to be explored. They are smart, but he's going to try and make contact with them. And that expedition, he goes next week. And it's like, wow, that's my dream, he's telling me. So that's how it all begins. I ask him, I beg him, I have to go with you. And he said, no problem, it's fun. We'll tell stories, we'll sit by the fire. And he's going, this expedition is all about gold. That's why he's going. He wants to explore the river because he heard there's like nuggets of gold in the river. So I've got it all, the tribe, the uncharted, and the gold. This is my dream. So I tell him, but look, I have my best friend, Marcus. We only a couple of weeks together, but I love Marcus. He's like he's the most beautiful person. And Marcus gets scared. He said, no, I'm going back to Switzerland. Forgot, like in 2-3 days I fly. And also I don't allow you to go. Now he doesn't allow me. So what do you mean you don't allow me? This is my life dream. I'm doing it. He said, no, how can you be so stupid? And he said, I'm offended. He called me stupid. This is like the nicest guy. I said, no, you're stupid. You meet somebody in the street and you shouldn't follow them and it's dangerous and, things like this. I said, Marcus, relax. This is my lifelong dream. I don't care. You go back home. I'm going. Nobody's going to stop me. But they insist, Marcus, to stop me. So in the coffee shop that night, somebody arrived that wasn't there yesterday, a big guy, and Marcus and him will run towards each other. Kevin. They were traveling before. They're very good friends. Now, I heard about him because he's a famous traveler. He's like the most daring, the toughest, the, strongest. He's an alpinist. He's a photographer. I heard stories about him. So I meet Kevin, and Kevin is telling me, look, I'm experienced, I'm many years on the road. You don't do that. You don't meet somebody in the street and you follow them and, I said, Kevin, I don't care. I heard about you. I respect you, but this is my dream. I'm going to do it. So that's how it starts. They come to meet Carl to protect me. They have no wish. However, Carl is a magician, like he told me my dream. Yeah. He tells Kevin his dream and he gets him because Kevin is a photographer. And when he tells Kevin, like me, he told me stories, but Kevin, he gives information, not stories. He draws the maps and he knows the distribution and the languages of the tribes. And he suddenly pulls photographs from his bag and he shows himself with indigenous people in the jungle. It's real. Kevin realizes this is real. Kevin says, I cannot miss it. If this tribe, my camera is going to be the first to take a picture, I'm in the National Geographic. This is my dream. So Kevin canceled all his plans, his flight back home to Thanksgiving. Cancels everything. I'm going. I'm excited. Marcus, he cancels his flight and he joins us. And that's how the story begins. It's amazing how the four of us come together. And then, my adventure finally begins.
So the four of you make your way into the jungle. What happens next?
Well, it's like my dream come true. Here is Carl, is like this great adventurer, this rugged Austrian, amazing storyteller. He can take me to the uncharted, to the tribes that was not explored before, where I can have all the experiences I dreamt about with the rituals and be part of the tribe, the Toromonas, also the riches of gold. So now we are a foursome, and each one is a totally different character. Kevin is not romantic at all, and he's not naive. Maybe he's naive because he joined that expedition, but he's 29, he's been around. Also, his background is totally different. He grew up in Oregon. He lived in nature all his life. There are whitewater rafters. He and his brothers, there's 7 brothers and sisters, all of them tough, in a Catholic family from the Dalles, Oregon. A lot of hunting, a lot of working in farms and mountain climbing and river rafting and fishing and hunting and all that. Totally comfortable in nature. He's strong, big. He's like 6'4" of muscle. He is like really built and strong. He's a very easygoing, but he cannot stand all these stories of Carl. He doesn't believe them, all this nonsense about the gold and that, and he doesn't have patience to listen to Carl so much. Marcus, the most beautiful person I ever met. Gentle, kind, beautiful. He had like this John Lennon face. And he had this little charango, like that little mandolin or guitar made of armadillo shell. And he's like beautifully singing. Everybody falls in love with him, all the girls and the guys. Marcus is just everybody's guy. Kind, giving, generous, fun, talented, patient, really beautiful. So the first tension is that Marcus is my best friend. And then Kevin comes around, but they've been on the road together and they have like their own friendship. So if anything is like me and Kevin, we are both best friends of Marcus. That's how it begins. Carl is an outsider. Now, he's not exactly our guide because he's not a guide. He's going on an expedition. But a day before, he said, I have a terrible news. I just got, and he comes with a letter in his hand. He met me. I was alone with him. He said, sorry, Yossi, I just got this letter, and he shows me the letter from his uncle. And then he tells me all this crazy story. His uncle is an escaped Nazi, and he's in the Reyes area, and he bought a truck, and he needs him to drive the truck to the ranch. And and he has to cancel the expedition. And I'm shocked. What do you mean cancel? And then, after a while he turns it around and said, you know what? If each one of you will pay me $50, I can do it. And I'm offended because I had this image of the great explorer and that, and now he wants $50 each one of us. So I am, I want to cancel the expedition. But when I tell Kevin says, oh, it's much better. Instead of following him, now we are paying him, he'll be our guide. And what is $50 is nothing, even then, $50 for such an expedition was not a lot of money, even for backpackers like us. So we said, we'll pay him $50 each. Now, later we see, he was very embarrassed, but he said, look, I'll pay you back. Once we find the gold, I'll pay you back with gold, So I believe everything, I believe the gold. So we pay him $50 each, and he buys himself boots and a bag because he didn't have nothing. There's a bit of a turn in the image of Carl, from the great, suddenly. So that's the setup. And we go in, and we fly out of La Paz. We fly to Apollo. It's like the already frontier. From Apollo, we do our shopping in Apollo, and we buy also a shotgun. And we buy ammunition, and we buy not a lot of food, mainly rice and beans, and food for a few days. Because the logic behind it is that we're going to hunt. We're not going to carry canned meat when we're going into the jungle, but we will take rice, beans, so there's side dishes. But the main dish is going to be game. And we got the gun and all that. And we got a machete, and we got a few things all that you take in an expedition. And we leave Apollo and we walk and we walk and we walk. And very soon, it's jungle. It's very exciting. And there's a trail and we follow that trail. Now, Carl knows this trail. So it's not his first time here. He knows also people. We see that they know him in Apollo. And we keep on going. Now, we walk on that trail for a few days. And along the trail, this is jungle, but there is a trail, and the trail is leading all the way to Asariamas, which is 4 days walk on the trail. And Asariamas is the last settlement. Along the way, there's no settlement, but just ranches. And we see a few ranches along the way in the jungle, and it's really surreal, it's a different world, really remote, far world. And so sometimes we stop at the ranch and we sleep there, and sometimes we'll just off that little trail, Carl will quickly build a camp, and we see how experienced he is. Very good with the machete. He cuts the, bamboo or whatever reed it is, and he makes rope out of a certain, he peels the bark of a tree and he pulls between the bark and the trunk. There's a fiber that is turning into rope. He's very good like that. He knows a lot. So it's very impressive to see him in the jungle. He feels at home. You can feel it immediately. As we enter the wilderness, he's awakened and he is upgoing and upbeat and outgoing and upbeat and happy. And we keep on going. And then there's a couple of incidents. The first incident is that, a moth touched Marcus's mosquito net at night. And he woke up screaming and we all got up. But this was the first sign of Marcus not fitting, It was just a moth, but he was he touched his face through the mosquito net and he's screaming and we all get up and the flashlight and we're laughing at him and it's all still fun and that, but it's the beginning. And then there's another incident which is much worse, because Carl went up front and we were lingering behind and we come into a small interception, like there's two ways. Marcus gets really scared. Said, no. Kevin is confident that he went towards the river, the left fork. And Marcus saying, you cannot be sure, and we should wait, and he will come back. And they have their first fight. Kevin really losing it, and they have a fight. And Marcus cringes, and we keep on walking. And Carl is, of course, where Kevin said he will be. So by the time we get to Asaryamas, there already cracks into this friendship. We arrive to Asaryamas, and it's a beautiful village. They are not Amazonian. They are settlers. They came from the mountains, and they settled in the Amazon. And they've been there for, 20 years maybe. It's a young settlement. And of course, they're hunters, and they do everything, but they're not Amazonians. They're Aymara from the mountains. They look at us, and they were very hospitable to us, and we stayed with them for a couple of nights. And they were said, they told us, what are you doing? Where's your guide? We're four gringos. So you're going into the inside without a guide? And Carl is the guy. And they say, we talk to them, and they say, they never heard about this Toromonas. There's nobody there. And they also say, it's early October, the rainy season is almost here. It's not a good time to go in the jungle. So they give us all these signs, but we're too excited to even listen to them. There's so much adrenaline and excitement and our dream. And Carl also hears that, and he dismisses them. Said, they're not real Amazonian. They don't know. And the Toromonas, they don't want them to know about them. And don't worry, within 3 weeks, we're already getting out of here. It's just 3-4 days to the Toromonas. We'll stay a few days, and, so we don't make any. But one thing I remember, when we left, we were staying at the house of somebody, Don Jorge. They were very kind to us, and they got touched a little bit. And she was running after us. As we left and started walking into the jungle, she ran after us, and she was pleading, please, don't go. Stay with us, stay as long as you want, don't go. She was really running. And I'll never forget it, as it was foreboding, don't go. But we went. And then we started walking, and now this is completely new territory. The moment we left Asaryamas, there is no place to go. It's over. It's the Madidi. There are no trails. There's no road, no trail leading anywhere. So this is the uncharted. Yeah.
This
and
is
it's scary. Yeah. There is no map. So we have a map that is basically an area. You don't see anything because it just, it's a sea of trees. So what you see is the rivers and the mountain ranges, and that's all. And anyways, there is no trail. You cannot use a map. And to follow rivers is not that straightforward because the rivers, the vegetation is thicker by the river. Not always you can walk in the water, but if you can, if it's a creek or shallow water, you can walk. It's sometimes faster than hacking your way with the machete, but it's tough. It's much harder. The romance of the idea to be in the uncharted is very quickly evaporating. And I even feel in my guts that I went too far. And I said, wow, what's going on? What am I doing? This is a dream of a child, maybe, Asaryamas is here. Maybe we should stop and go back. And I really want to, because it's scary. I don't know even why it's scary, but it's falling into some kind of an abyss because everything disappears, culture. It's we are 4 men and this is wilderness. This could have been 1,000 years earlier. It would have been the same. And there's nothing, there's no trail, but there's also no telegraph line. There's no airplane that will pass in the sky. It's totally isolated. We walk, and it's tough because the machete, we pass it from one to one. And we're hungry, and we didn't hunt anything. And we think, oh, because we are close to Asariamas and they are hunting in these grounds, and don't worry, tomorrow we'll eat meat. Tonight, just soup with some rice and beans. Carl is happy, and he makes he builds the lean-to, and he cooks us. He's doing everything. He's very able. And the next day, and I think the next day we killed the first animal. It was actually quite gruesome because it was a sloth. And Carl chased him. And he got him, and he was all laughing, waving with him in the air and screaming, La Jolla, to the pot, and then he killed him with the machete. And it was hard to see, there's first of all, that miserable creature that cannot run away, and also it's not very, it's not something you want to eat. It's not, it's like a creature, the sloth is like a strange looking animal, but that's the first meat we eat. It's the sloth. And then the next day, monkeys, Carl shoots a monkey, a big spider monkey. And that's already a drama because there is a shot and a monkey comes down, a big monkey, and the monkey is not dead. And we're running, to the bush where the monkey fell, and the monkey is not dead, so he's screaming, and it's like heartbreaking. And then Carl beats him with the butt of the gun, bashes him and kills him. Very gruesome. But Carl is saying, you don't waste another bullet. This is like the jungle. You don't waste a bullet. Marcus is crying. Marcus is destroyed. So they had another fight, Kevin and Marcus. He couldn't appreciate that weakness. You put yourself in that situation, you eat and deal with it, because otherwise, why did you put yourself in this situation? This was Kevin's attitude, which is an attitude of somebody that grew up like that, with 7 brothers and sisters, and, very resourceful and tough and nature. So he was upset with that kind of behavior. He thought it's irresponsible for him to put himself in such a situation.
Being a liability.
Completely. But that was, what happened is that it's very sad, but in terms of the relationship. So now Marcus and Kevin weren't such good friends. Marcus kind was almost avoiding him. And he told me, Marcus was very emotional about what happened. And Kevin was concerned about Marcus. By all means, he was concerned about him. And he even told me, walk with him, pay more attention to him. Kevin was, but for me, I didn't feel comfortable. And that's something that it's hard to talk about it, but, it's complex to say what happened, it's very hard just to put it all together. But as, the couple of days later, it just got worse because Marcus was so needy. Even though I was young, they were older. Marcus was 28, Kevin was 29, I was just 21, 22. But he was needy, and in a way, I wasn't compassionate. I felt much better walking with Kevin, and where, it was a new friendship and a kindred spirit, and we talked. Maybe it was some kind of a survival instinct. Kevin was the tough guy, maybe. But maybe it was the dark side, which I'm afraid, I realized, the dark side. And the dark side, is really scary because usually you don't look at it. You can hide it, even from yourself. But under such circumstances, I just couldn't hide it. And I saw what's going on inside me. And I got scared because it was scarier than the beast in the jungle. Because it's hard to even say, but I kind of enjoyed his defeat. I had some profit in it. I remember because it was really tough. Marcus needed me because he felt, alone, isolated, and he needed me. And I pretended, but He cannot really pretend. He felt it's not genuine, and I knew it's not genuine. And basically, I wasn't there for him. When he needed me, I wasn't there for him. Walked with Kevin, so we became like a couple. We were walking together. And Marcus had no choice, but he was driven to walk with Carl. Kind of it started that separation. Like I was closer with Kevin, and Marcus and Carl got closer. And one night, I remember Marcus tried to talk about it, and Carl was already snoring, under his mosquito net, and the three of us were sitting by the fire, and Marcus tried to open it. The moment he tried to open it about what's going on with our friendship, Kevin just got up and said, look, this is all like, you're just not comfortable here. That's the problem. And Kevin just left. And as he left, Marcus said, you see how he behaves to me? And then he started crying and he said, Yossi, he basically said, why did you leave me? Why aren't you my friend anymore? And again, I was young. I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle what's going on inside me. I just couldn't tell him anything. So I just repeated what Kevin said. I said, maybe Kevin is right. And there's nothing, nothing has changed with me, just you. And I left him and I went under the mosquito net. And that also something that I'll never forget, because under the flickering light, I saw that Kevin's eyes are open. He wasn't sleeping. And I wasn't sleeping. And Marcus was outside there crying. And we didn't get up. Both of us. We just didn't get up. We stayed and heard them cry. It was a terrible night because I could see clearly what's going on inside me, and it was ugly. So the dynamics were also like Carl was there. Carl was amazing, but he didn't shut up. So he was storytelling all the time. And it's dangerous because he made up new stories that didn't fit the earlier stories. And we started seeing that we don't know who is this guy. Because he said he's a geologist, but now he's saying, no, I'm an agronomist. I never said I'm a geologist. Things that didn't make sense. And so that was going on. There was one thing about Carl, he was very tough. He was he was kind to us and all, but we had to do what he said. By the way, he didn't want us to do much. He did most of the work, but he was the leader. And Kevin, it was hard for him because Kevin would walk with many guides, but they were indigenous, local. This was a gringo, there was tension between them. But Kevin wasn't the master of the jungle, and Carl was. And when I tell you master, he would milk rubber and fix the shoe. He would, he showed us the palmito, how to eat the palm hard. And he knew so many things, and especially was very good with the machete to cut and build and chop. And he was hunting and cooking and making the fire, rekindling the fire in the morning. He was very hard worker and always in good mood, teaching us all the time, come learn how to do that, come see how that, we followed him. And he saw what's going on with Marcus. And he was compassionate towards Marcus. And then Marcus, if that's not enough, he started contracting this rash on his feet. And he was complaining all the time that it hurts. Now we saw day by day how it's like his entire feet are covered with that rash. And now it's painful and he's startled. And we got again, it's like a bit of Lord of the Fly, It's like now we're upset with him that he's hurt because we want to get to the tribe and we're lingering because of him. And it's like, really, it's scary what can happen in a short time in terms of this dynamic. It's scary. So now it's a couple of weeks in this jungle. Now there's not much rice and beans left. Marcus doesn't eat because we mainly shoot monkeys because they are the easier to shoot. We're all edgy. And we're not sure about this tribe anymore because Carl we know he's not reliable. And he said 3-4 days, we're already 2 weeks. So it's all, and Marcus with his feet, and Marcus now he's not trying to, he's complaining and he's worried and he's not happy. And then Marcus demands, I want you to take me out. I can't take it anymore. My feet, and there's no food, and I don't trust there will be anybody there. And this is, I want out. And he's like, he wants out. And I'm upset because we're so close. I still believe in this story. Like I'm the only one that trusts Carl still because I love his stories, and I never tired of listening to his stories. And now we befriended each other more. He tells me, you know what? You'll be my partner. We'll build the gold mine together. We'll come back here, and So I already dream all the riches of gold. I believe him, So Kevin wants to continue, but Kevin is much more responsible. And he's saying, Carl is saying, we leave Marcus with one of you. We build a camp, and I go with one of you, and we make contact with the tribe, and we come back, build a stretcher and all that, and we'll carry him. Which is a crazy idea, like we say no. And then Kevin suddenly has an idea. And that's something that we didn't see. That's a twist in the plot. And so Kevin is saying, why don't we build a raft? We are on a big river and cut to civilization on a raft. And that somehow saves the mood as well, because we were so grumpy to stop now and walk back for a couple of weeks. And this is like a new adventure. We'll build a raft, and, it will be faster and easier. Suddenly we laugh again, and, and the friendship, and Marcus feels better about himself and all that. But Carl, and this without noticing, because Carl now, remember, is our guide, So we tell him, we decide, you're our guide. You take us out on the raft. And we build a raft. And of course, Carl is the master of the machete, and we cut balsa trees, and we bring the raft together. And then when it's finally, the raft is ready and it's a few good days, 4 or 5 days just to build the raft. And then we start cruising down the river, and in the beginning it's everything okay. But then incidents on the river, and the incidents, even minor incidents, they cause a big havoc. Because Carl, we discover he doesn't swim. He's scared of water. He filled his bag with balsa chips. So he will float if he will fall. He carries his bag, which is funny, on the raft, because his bag is full of balsa. He's afraid of the water. But he insists, he's the leader. But Kevin comes from Oregon, and Kevin is a whitewater rafter, and he sees that Carl has no clue how to navigate a raft on the river. He doesn't read the river right. He doesn't understand how to maneuver. So Kevin is worried and said, no. And Carl is like outrageous. You don't tell me this is not Oregon. You don't. And they fight. Now it's the fight. The oppressed right is outside, and they split us again. We were split already. But on the raft, Marcus is crying and begging that we listen to Carl. But we rebel. Kevin and I don't listen to Carl. And it's like really surreal. We are like whitewater, and we fight, and we speak 2 different languages. They speak German. We speak English. Before we also Spanish. So again, this goes for 4 days on the river, and lots of trouble, lots of incidents. But the one incident that was like major, is that we arrived at like a series of rapids, and Carl screamed and managed to stop us, and we pulled to the left bank. And then Carl said, well, will we camp here for the night? I will cut some vines, and we'll tie the raft, and we drag it on shore until we cross the rapids, and then we'll mount it again. Kevin said, it was nonsense, but Carl is the boss. So we get off the raft, and we start making some preparation for the night. And Carl is saying, I'll go, I'll get some vines. And as he goes, Kevin tells me, come on, we can do it alone. We can just pass the rapids. I said, are you sure? I said, yeah, come on. And now another thing is, Kevin is big, strong, experienced, and 8 years older than me. And in that situation, I become a bit dependent on him. Yeah, I want to please him. So he tells me, come, I go with him. Okay? And Marcus is like screaming, what are you doing? He's like our father. You upset him. He doesn't deserve it. No, he tries to stop us. And Kevin just, shoves him, gives it. And Marcus jumps on the raft. Before we know it, we all three dragged with the raft into this rapid. It's rougher than what Kevin thought, and but anyway, we go through them. And we come outside the other side. And now we scream victory, and we pull the raft. And Carl takes hours. He doesn't come. And when he comes, he's really upset, but he doesn't say anything. And then the next day we embark on the raft and we keep on. And then a few hours later, we stop. He tells us, stop here. There's a river coming into the Tuiche River, the Ipurama. So he said, let's stop here. We stop and he tells us, this is it. I'm leaving you. If you want to leave, join me. If not, die alone. I'm not going to die for you, and this is death. There's big rapids and waterfalls and a canyon, Malpaso. Kevin, he thinks he knows what he's talking about, and you don't listen to me, and you don't know anything, and I had enough, so I'm leaving. So, where? And he takes the map and he shows us the Ipurama. It wasn't coincidence. He already planned it. And he shows us that the Ipurama, it leads to nowhere. But he says, if we walk up the Ipurama, there's a trail. It's not in the map, but it's coca leaf smugglers, paste smugglers. And it leads to Apollo. So he tells us he knows the trail. And it will take us 2-3 days to get there. And once we are on the trail, we'll get back to Apollo. So we agree. What can we do? He's the guide. We agree. And in a way, I feel relieved because the stress on the raft was crazy. So I feel relieved because back to the jungle, we know that Carl knows his business in the jungle. And, Marcus' feet are just worse on the raft because he's on the raft, you're wet all the time. So his feet is a mess and he cannot walk. They say we'll wait until Marcus can walk. And we build a camp there and we wait a few days. And Marcus all day sits by the fire, dries his feet, rubs them with Vaseline and dries them in the sun, dries them by the fire so it will dry and he can walk again. The second day, Kevin and me walking, and Kevin tells me, listen, the best thing for us is let them go, you and I stay, and we'll take the raft because I'm tired of stopping things and stopping all this adventure because of nonsense. Carl has no clue. The river is not dangerous. I've been on many more dangerous. Trust me, we'll be fine. Come with me. So again, I didn't want to come with him. But I didn't tell him. I wanted to go out with Carl. But in that circumstances, as I say, the relationship, I didn't tell him. But I said, what with Marcus? If Marcus wants to come with us, and no, he will not want to come with us. For sure he will want to stay with his daddy. But Marcus did. He said, no, we are 3 friends. We stay together. Carl is a guide. If he wants to walk, he walks. But we're 3 friends. We stick together. And here was a moment of betrayal because we told him no. We told him you're not coming with us. And again, to cover for Kevin, that it was obvious that we're doing a crazy, dangerous thing. And it was obvious that Carl knows the jungle and he will take him out. But we didn't let him choose. We chose for him. We didn't give him a free choice. We said, no, it's enough. Get out. Better for you. We'll meet in La Paz. Once we're in La Paz together, it will all be fine again. But now it's time for you just to leave the jungle, go with Carl. He accepted it. He cried, but then the next day he was very noble again and hugged and kissed us and we split. And they left and started walking, and again, never forget it, seeing them walk and disappear into the jungle. And that was the last of them. They were never seen again. Both of them, no trace, no sign. Nobody knows. Nobody knows nothing. There was nothing left of them. They were just swallowed, and nobody knows anything. They were never seen again. Marcus and Carl disappeared. We didn't know that. at that time. So Kevin and I went on the raft, and it was a matter maybe, the beginning excitement, and Kevin now is the boss, just me and him. He tells me what to do and, how to move with the oar and with the sticks. He ties the equipment, and we separate two bags, one bag with the important stuff. We'll keep it afloat, tie a couple of empty cans. We push the raft and we start. In the beginning, it's fun and we're free, and the adventure and the friendship, and it's all beautiful. And nature, amazing nature, all the time, in the jungle, on the river. This is like, the jungle is unbelievable. And as the time passed, I'm not afraid anymore. I love that. I really love that. And so we enjoy all that. And, it's about 3 hours that, we see that the river changes and gets narrow and narrow, and cliffs are building. And Kevin is telling me we better, stop and, it looks dangerous. And Carl told us about that. But it was supposed to be a few more hours, and, we didn't understand exactly. Minutes. And the river just got so narrow, like a bottleneck. And it just took us in. And in minutes, there were cliffs on both sides, and we are stuck in a canyon, and there was nothing we could do. Nothing, there's no point in trying to, And then we see a rock coming. It was like a huge black rock. And there was nothing we could do. Nothing.
Return for part 2 as Yossi is faced with having to survive alone in the jungles of the Amazon. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you down the road when we get together again, share a glass of whiskey, and hear more stories of adventure as told by those who live them. Until then, check us out at michaeljreinhart.com, where you'll find more of my work as an adventure photojournalist. Photos, videos, and articles of interesting people, mysterious places, and exotic cultures from the wild places of the world.